Okay, so today we are talking firewood and creosote. I'm a chimney sweep, been a chimney sweep my entire life. And there's a lot of people that will say to me when I take out a bunch of creosote out of their chimney, but I don't burn pine. And I want to be the first one to say, creosote doesn't come from pine. What creosote is creosote is water and unburnt smoke. What I mean by unburnt smoke is when you take a log that is really wet and you throw it on a fire, it will kind of smolder, so it doesn't have a chance to get into those upper temperatures, and that log will smolder and burn, and kind of like smoking food. You get that aroma that goes up the chimney. That is unburnt smoke. When you burn a fire rapidly or really hot, there's a secondary combustion that happens that burns up all that smoke. And you'll notice on a fire that's burning really hot, if you look at the top of the chimney, there's no smoke. It's because the smoke went through a second burning system that reburned everything. The potbelly is really good at that. And then a lot of your modern stoves have a secondary combustion chamber that reburns that smoke to help reduce the amount of creosote. But even they don't work if you pile it full of wet wood. And it burns really slow. Even they'll produce a lot of creosote. So here at the cabin, I've got a potbelly stove, a kitchen stove that's wood-fired up in the cabin, the open fireplace. In the basement, I have a wood-burning furnace, which is airtight. I have another wood-fired kitchen stove in the back kitchen, and then the pizza oven in the backyard. The only one that really produces a bunch of creosote is the airtight wood furnace. And the reason is, inside of big logs like this, and this one has been down for, heck, this log's probably been down for a year now. I just split it for this video. But when you split this log open, this is soaking wet. So this wood has been down for over a year. The bark has even fallen off of it, but that's water. That's where your creosote comes from. So what happens when you throw a log like this into your airtight wood stove or wood furnace is that the first thing it does is it starts to evaporate that water out of there. And if your chimney is cold enough, that water will go in there and stick to the walls, and it'll make a moist surface. And then it'll start to burn the log, but it'll sit there and smolder. Well, that smoldering is unburnt wood. So that smoke goes up the chimney at a very cold temperature, and it drops, sticks to that water, causing it to form creosote. The acceptable percentage of moisture that should be in firewood is around 20%. Most of what I have stacked here is more like in the 13 to 15% range. This piece that I just split, the one that I said has been outside, is probably closer to the 30% range. So this would be a really bad log to put in that wood furnace in the basement, but split down a little bit better, it would burn okay in the potbelly stove. I also would not burn that in my fireplace because it would produce creosote in the fireplace if I burned it there. So ideally, you can get a gauge from eBay or whatever that there's a firewood moisture gauge. 20% is the number. You should not check the wood on the end. You should split it and take that sample from the core. But 20%. 20% is your number. Stay below 20%. That doesn't mean you won't get creosote, because at 20%, you're saying 20% of that weight is water. So there's still a lot of water in there. There's still the potential for creosote depending on how you burn it. There are places in this world, Canada for example, that I went on a fishing trip there and there was nothing to burn but pine. You know, there's a lot of people that burn pine and have to burn pine. I don't burn pine I don't burn pine all the time. The stack of wood behind me, there's a couple pieces of pine here and there. I use it for kindling. I'll use it for kindling in the fireplace too, but only after it's good and dry. So can you burn pine? I'm going to start with, why would you want to if you had a bunch of other wood? Other than, it's actually really great kindling wood. I mean, for starting a quick fire and using just a couple little pieces, you can't get anything that lights much easier than this. So for that reason, I would say yes, you can burn a little pine. The length of time that, let's just say this wood was dry, it would burn as nice as this, but it's going to burn really quick. So you're going to get a lot of energy off of it really fast, but then the show's over. I mean, this stuff will burn. This is oak. This is red oak. It'll burn much longer. If you have a good hardwood, in my area, locust is by far the best. It's really dense. It doesn't have much moisture. It will produce heat for, let's just say you fill up the same size stove and the locust might burn for 10 hours. Well, this same equivalent of wood is going to burn for an hour. So why would you want to burn it other than for kindling wood? And then again, in the potbelly stove, because it burns open, if I fill it up with pine, I can take this cabin from probably, let's say 50 degrees in the morning to 75 in 10 minutes. So for that reason, I burn a little bit of pine, because what happens is it pushes that pitch out, it pushes that pine tar out, and instantly I've got everything super hot. So for that reason, I burn some pine in the cabin. Okay, I'm going to leave you with this. Do what you're comfortable with. If you can burn a little bit of pine for kindling, then do it, but do it safely. And get your chimney cleaned, or clean your chimney as often as it needs cleaned. If you burn really wet wood, it doesn't take that long to get enough creosote in a chimney to have a chimney fire. If you burn really dry wood and you burn it really rapidly, chimneys don't produce a lot of creosote. So you get your chimney cleaned as often as it needs to be cleaned, or you clean it as often as it needs to be cleaned. Typically, someone who has a wood furnace needs to clean their chimney at least once a month. The potbelly stove, it really doesn't produce much creosote at all, and I burn it every day. I sweep it once a year. Open fireplace, same thing. It burns really rapidly, really hot. I don't get a lot of creosote in there. I clean that one once a year. Anyway, that's where I'm going to leave you for today.